intlx Solutions, founded by engineers, valued for our expertise. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to intlx Solutions, where we empower the people and connect the business. Today, we're going to be empowering you with the knowledge needed to set up an Avaya Session Border Controller for high availability. And we begin by downloading a single OVA image from Avaya, which will be used to deploy both the EMS and our Avaya Session Border Controllers. How cool is that? We can now use our OVA to deploy our first virtual machine in our SBCE HA pair and EMS. And we'll begin by selecting Create Register Virtual Machine, choose the Deploy an OVA file option, and we will be deploying an EMS, so I will name it accordingly. In this section, we also need to upload the OVA for our EMS. Remember, this is the same OVA for both the SBC and EMS. Next, we'll accept the end user license agreement. And with an EMS, we only need to define the M1 interface. So I'll set this to my management network. And since it's a lab, I'll go ahead and leave the deployment on the disk to thin deployment on the disk provisioning. Selecting Next gives us a review of our configuration, and clicking Finish begins the deployment process. While we're waiting for the deployment to complete, I just want to make note that this video will cover the deployment of the SBC up to the point where both SBCs are registered to the EMS as either primary or secondary. But if you're interested in seeing a video of the entire setup process of this SBC as depicted in the network diagram at the beginning of this video, leave a comment and a thumbs up, because if we get 100 likes, I'll make the video. I just want to make sure that we have enough interest, because it would be a pretty lengthy video to make. Okay, so within our VMware console, we have a few options to choose from. The one we want, Option 1, Configure Command Line Mode. I will go through a few of the settings up front before letting the video progress quickly through the network details. So first, we're going to set our IP mode. I'll be using IPv4. Next, our appliance type will be EMS. And lastly, the network passphrase. Make sure you remember this, because this passphrase is going to be used in both of the SBCs that we'll be deploying shortly, and it needs to be the same across all three devices. Looks like we have some good news here. It looks like the configuration script has completed successfully. Let's verify that the IPCS login is working. Great, that looks good. Next, I like to log into the EMS web UI to confirm everything is functioning properly there as well. Go ahead and accept the license agreement. And for the initial login, we use ucsec as the username and ucsec as the password. You will then be prompted to change the password. When we first log into the SBC, you'll see some warning messages about licensing. This is completely normal for a newly deployed SBC, or EMS in this case, and it can be addressed via licensing under Device Management. If we click on Device Management, we can see that we have one device listed, our EMS. This means we are now ready to deploy our Session Border Controllers. The process is very similar to the steps we followed for deploying the EMS. We'll begin by navigating to VMware, selecting the appropriate OVA image, and proceeding with the OVA deployment. The screens you'll use here are identical to those that we encountered during the EMS deployment, since we're using the same OVA image. The two major differences is that the SBC uses additional virtual network interfaces, specifically the M1, M2, A1, A2, B1, and B2. Because of this, we'll need to map each of these interfaces to the appropriate network during deployment, and our deployment type will be SBC instead of EMS. And through the magic of video editing, our deployment is complete. Just like our EMS OVA deployment, the SBC deployment script presents the same Configure via command line option. Aside from the network configuration parameters, the main difference is selecting SBCE as the appliance type. Also, be sure to use the same network passphrase that was configured during the EMS deployment. I won't be covering every configuration parameter shown in this script. However, I like to include the full script in the video. That way you can pause at any time to review and examine any specific details you'd like to explore further. Our SBC deployment is now complete, and I've verified access to the CLI. Next, we'll log back into the EMS to configure the SBCs so that they can register with the EMS successfully. To do this, navigate to Device Management and click Add. Select the node type SBCE HA pair. Then enter the primary and secondary SBC node information as shown below. Once all details have been entered, simply click Finish. Now, there's always some network configuration needed after deploying the SBCs. Each of the interfaces is associated with a specific VLAN. So what I do is I comb through the interfaces, matching the MAC address for each network adapter against the interfaces of the SBC. For example, my management network is in VLAN 100. I can see that the M1 interface is connected to VLAN 100, so I ensure that the VLAN 100 port group is assigned to that interface. I continue this process for both SBC1 and SBC2 for each interface. The final step is to install our SBC through Device Management. Then choose Install. Configure the appliance name that you wish to be displayed on your EMS for the AHA SBC pair, the DNS parameters, a name for a network interface you plan on configuring as part of your deployment, that interface's default gateway and mask, the interface you wish to configure, in this case I'm configuring my B1 interface, and the IP address of that interface. Once complete, hit Finished, and after a few minutes, your SBC HA pair will show a status of commissioned and a notation as to which is now the primary and which is the secondary in this configuration. intlx Solutions, empowering people, connecting businesses.